I'm super excited to be able to kick off our brand new series called Game Plan, and it's all about growing stronger in our faith every day. Everybody say every day. It's all about growing strong in our faith every day. When I think of a game plan, right, I think of something that gets us ready to do something, right? You think of a game plan as something that gets you ready to do something. And when you think of a game plan, I also think of practice, right? Now, when I say that word practice, some of us in this room are super excited because we love to practice whatever it is that we're doing. But some of us are just like, practice? I don't like to practice. I don't like to do that. I just like to do the thing. So I want to ask you a quick question before we get started. What is something that you've had to practice for? What is it, whether it was an event, whether it was a instrument, whether it was a sport, what is something that you've had to practice for before? Talk to me. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're on a running team and she had to practice 2 times a week. What about you? Yep. Okay, practice ice skating and strategy games. All right, all the way in the back. Drawing and art. Okay. What about you? Doing gymnastics. Okay. Put your hands down. There's a lot of different things that we can practice for. Something that I used to practice for, I practiced for a long time. Like I didn't practice for like 3 months or 6 months. I practiced for more than a year, for more than 2 years, more than 4 years, more than 7 years. I did this thing for a long time. Anybody know what it is? Anybody want to guess what it is? Basketball. It was rapping, okay? I used to be a rapper, okay? I used to be a Christian hip hop artist, and I rapped for about 10 years, okay? So I did that for a very long time. Listen up. Bring it back. I did that for a very long time, and it required practice and practice and practice, right? But here's the thing. When we talk about this idea of practice, how do we actually define practice? Because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Go ahead and take that down, Mike. We're all on the same page when I talk about practice. So here's how we are defining practice, because we're going to be talking about this all month long. Here's how we're defining practice. Practice means that you do it again and again so you get better, right? When we're talking about practice, it's something that you're doing again and again. It's something that you have a rhythm in doing so that you can try to get better and better at it, all right? Practice means that you show up on purpose even when you don't feel like it, right? There are going to be times where you don't feel like doing the thing, right? Gymnastics takes a lot of energy, right? So there are going to be times where she's not feeling like doing the workouts and the things, but you need to stay committed to it. You show up on purpose. That's what it means when you practice something, right? Because you want to get better at it. And then also practice means you learn from mistakes, then try again. You see, a lot of times we're scared to do something because we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to mess up. We don't want people to see us messing up. But that's the point of practice. Practice is when you should mess up, when you should make mistakes so that you can learn from those mistakes, all right? Practice also means that you take small steps and celebrate small wins, right? It's all about taking a small step and celebrating those wins. You're not going to get everything all at once. And then finally, practice means that you keep going when it's boring or hard, right? Practice means that you keep going at the thing. You keep doing the thing when it's boring or when it's hard, right? So that's going to be our working definition for practice as we navigate this month, because we're going to be talking about some different game plans that we want y'all to learn, right? And in order to learn these things, you're going to have to practice these things, right? We're going to have to practice so that we can make our faith stronger and stronger. Some of the things we're going to be talking about this month is going to be how to pray to God, right? We're going to be talking about praying to God and what a game plan for that could look like. We're going to be talking about how do we hear from God, right? We're going to be talking about how do we live for God. But today, we're going to be talking about how do we talk about God, right? How do we talk about God with others? And we're going to look at this story in the Bible that's going to be with Jesus, because I feel like he set the example for us. So if you have your Bibles with you, you're going to go ahead and open up to Luke chapter 2, verses 41 through 52. If you don't, that's okay. I'm going to read the verse for you, and we're going to hear this story together. And we're going to be talking about when Jesus was a younger boy and he was in the temple, right? When Jesus was a younger boy and he found himself in the temple, all right? Luke 2, chapter 41, verse through 52, and it says this. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the Passover feast. Everybody say feast. Went to Jerusalem for the Passover feast. When Jesus was 12 years old, they went up to the feast as usual. After the feast was over, his parents left to go back home. The boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were not aware of it. They thought he was somewhere in their group, so they traveled on for a day. Then they began to look for him among their relatives and friends. They did not find him. So they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, everybody say 3. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courtyard. He was sitting with the teachers. He was listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at how much he understood. They were also amazed at his answers. When his parents saw him, they were amazed. When his parents saw him, they were amazed. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been worried about you." Everybody say worried. Your father and I have been worried about you. We have been looking for you everywhere. Why were you looking for me? He said. Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house? But they did not understand what he meant by that. Then he went back to Nazareth with them, and he obeyed them. Everybody say obeyed. But his mother kept all these things like a secret treasure in her heart. Jesus became wiser and stronger. He also became more and more pleasing to God and to people. All right? Now, as we look at this story, there are two things about this story that I want us to kind of talk about and focus in on for the rest of the time, right? Two things that I feel like highlight some of what was going on in this story and how we can start to orient ourselves to talk more about God. The first thing is this. We see Jesus not where his parents thought he should be, right? His parents went on this journey. They went and they were on their way back. They thought that he was in the caravan of people that were walking back, but he wasn't. So they go back to go try to find him. And then they find him, and they thought he was lost, and they were worried about him. It says in Luke 2:48, Mary was just like, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been worried about you." But here's the thing. Jesus wasn't lost. He was right where he was meant to be. He wasn't lost. He was right where he was meant to be. Now, this is interesting because Jesus was in the temple, and Jesus was in the temple with these other adults. Like, these were grown-ups that were in the temple, right? And the Bible says that, we think that Jesus was about 12-ish years old. We don't know exactly, but around your age, right? And he's in there with grown-ups having conversations about God. Right? He's having conversations about God. And I think the thing that I want us to get from that part of the story is this. This shows that Jesus' priority was his father, right? His priority was being in his father's house. His priority was doing his father's work. What does that mean for us? Well, the fourth and fifth graders, we may think, well, we're too young for God to be the priority right now. Like, we're too young. Like, who would we talk to about God? We're just kids. We don't fully know everything. We don't understand. Jesus was 12, like around 12 years old, right? And he made it his priority to be about his Father's business. And here's what I believe. I believe you can make that your priority too. I believe just because you're in fourth grade or just because you're in fifth grade does not mean that you cannot make God a priority in your life right now. Right? I believe that you can start to talk about God with the people that are around you, whether you're at home, whether you're at school, wherever it is that you find yourself. But here's the thing. We even try to create an environment for you to do that here. Right? We have our large group time, but then we have our small group time. And the sole purpose of our small group time is to create a space for you to talk about God. Because here's what we know. As you talk about God, you're going to keep talking about you. You're going to learn more. You're going to ask questions. You're going to be confused about some things. But this is a space where you get to talk with your leaders about what you may be confused about and grow in your faith. Everybody say grow. You can grow in your faith. So Jesus shows us that his priority was about being about his Father's business. And I believe that us fourth and fifth graders can do the same. We can make God our priority. Number two, everybody say two. Number two is this. Second thing I want us to notice is Jesus didn't push his parents away. Now, I think this is very interesting, and a lot of times we hear the story or we just read the story and we're just like, we're so used to what Jesus says here to his parents, right? And his mom basically says, Jesus, like, where were you? Like, we were worried about you. And he just casually, young, and says, like, what do you mean? Like, I was about my Father's, like, didn't you know I was going to be here, right? But I think something happens a little bit later, which is super interesting in the verse, right? Verse 51 says this. It says, then he went back to Nazareth with them. Right? It says, then he went back to Nazareth with them and obeyed them. Now, I think that's interesting because it doesn't say, then he obeyed them and went back to Nazareth with them, right? So the problem there was that Jesus wasn't where he was supposed to be, right? And it would have been a great story if it just said Jesus obeyed them and went back with them, because that's what we should do. We should obey our parents. But it says something a little bit even further than that, right? Because it says he went back to Nazareth with them and he obeyed them. So it wasn't just obedience in that moment. As we kind of look at the verse, it's not just obedience in that moment, but it was obedience as he continued to grow, right? He went back to Nazareth with them, and he obeyed them. And here's why that's important. Because as the verse kind of goes on, it says this. Jesus became wiser and stronger, and he also became more and more pleasing to God and to people. Right? You see, his attitude of obedience is what led to his growth and the way that he grew. Now we're talking about Jesus here, like our Savior. Like Jesus, who knows all of these things, can humble himself to obey his parents. You know, it reminds me of a story of my mom, okay? Now, anybody like to go to the movies? Anybody like to go to the movies? Anybody like to go to the movies? Okay. Well, I remember I was younger and I wanted to go to the movies. And I asked my mom, can I go to the movies with my friends? You know, everybody's going. I want to go. Can I go with my friends? What do you think she said? No. Do y'all know my mom? Like, yes, that's exactly what she said. She was like, no. I said, no, everybody's going. She was just like, I don't care. You're not everybody, right? And I'm just like, I'm just like, I don't like it. Anybody ever heard that? Any of your parents been like, you're not everybody, right? Go ahead. So I'm sitting there and I'm upset and I'm disappointed because I'm just like, man, I want to go. They get to go. She gets to go. What's right? What's wrong? Is this isn't fair? This isn't right. This isn't all these things. But it wasn't until I got older that I realized that it wasn't about my parents being right or wrong on whether or not I should go in that moment, right? It was actually more about my posture and my obedience to them. You see, my parents at that time in my life were put over me, so they were in charge. So it wasn't about whether or not the thing that I wanted was valid or if everybody else had it or all of the things. It wasn't about any of that. It was actually only about my responsibility to be obedient to what they were saying because this was my time with them, right? I was submitted to them. Now, some of you in this room hear that and just like, Mr. Josh, I don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. Like, it is our time, as right now, you guys are submitted to what your parents say. You are to obey what your parents ask of you, right? Of course, if it's not something dangerous or whatever the case may be, yes. But for the most part, you are submitted to, you don't need to understand it. It doesn't need to make sense to you. It honestly doesn't even need to be fair to you. But we see Jesus, who knows all, that can do all of the things, choose to take a posture of humility and submit himself and obey his parents. And that's something that we can do also, all right? We can have a posture of obedience. Everybody say obedience. Obedience, right? And here's why that's important, right? Here's why that's important, because of what happens after, right? Because like I said, it says that Jesus grew, and he grew in a specific type of way. And you can't learn those lessons to grow in that way. We talk about game plan. We talk about getting stronger in our faith. We can't learn those lessons if we're not submitting ourselves to those things.